Well, forget about whether the president is going after John Brennan's free speech. Today, a look at whether social media is doing the same to yours. Welcome, everybody. Happy Saturday. I'm Neil Cavuto, live this morning and focused on a series of tweets from the President of the United States this morning. At issue, who is really censoring whom? Now, to hear the president tell it, he's not the problem. The media is, and more to the point, social media is. Fast to silence conservative opinion, not so fast to rein in any other opinion. And specifically, again, the president laments the selective rage over what does and does not constitute bias. To Ellison Barber with the president of Berkeley Heights, New Jersey, on the tweets that are already creating a storm. Ellison.
Hey, Neil. Yeah, President Trump is accusing social media in general of discriminating against conservative voices, specifically Republican and conservative voices speaking loudly and clearly for the Trump administration. He says, quote, "We won't let that happen. They are closing down the opinions of many people on the right while at the same time doing nothing to others." In a second tweet, he called censorship a very dangerous thing and absolutely impossible to police. In a third tweet, he continued, quote, "Too many voices are being destroyed, some good and some bad, and that cannot be allowed to happen. Who is making the choices? Because I can already tell you that too many mistakes are being made." I've reached out to the White House to ask for clarification on those tweets and specifically what the president meant, if he is calling for or planning to call for any official action in regards to these allegations. So far, we have not heard back from the White House, but this is not a new issue for Republicans. In the past, an issue that has come up is so-called shadow banning. President Trump spoke out against what he saw as unfair treatment of conservative voices in the social media world. Republicans claimed that their tweets were being secretly hidden from other Twitter users. Twitter said that this was an issue with their search algorithm, essentially a tech issue, and that they fixed it. They denied any sort of shadow banning and said they identified an issue where some accounts weren't auto-suggested in search even when people were searching for their specific name, but they said that it only impacted those auto-search suggestions. Some lawmakers wanted Twitter CEO to appear on Capitol Hill and testify about that specific issue. In September, Jack Dorsey is expected to appear before the Senate Intelligence Committee. But in regards to Russian interference in U.S. elections, top executives from Facebook are also expected to be there. Again, the focus is on election interference, foreign actors trying to interfere in U.S. elections. But as is often the case with hearings on Capitol Hill, Neil, lawmakers sometimes ask about other things. And if the president keeps tweeting about this, there's probably a good chance this issue could come up in that September hearing.
I think there's an excellent chance of that. Ellison, thank you very, very much. Ellison Barber with the president of New Jersey. Now, does the president have a point here, regardless whether you're on the right or the left? Is there disproportionate interest in silencing those on the right than there is on the left because of all of these social media agencies and companies that have been reporting their new standards and practices? Not a one has tried to rein in on thought coming from the left. To Catalina magazine publisher Cathy Areu, who is no doubt outraged. Fox News contributors John Layfield and Jonas Max Ferris and Katherine Timpf. In the meantime here, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank, while I'm still here, David Asman and Trish Regan for all their hard work when I was out. They've reminded me to thank them. No, I'm very happy to thank them. John Layfield, the president's saying, look, it's not fair, it's not right. What do you think?
I think he has a point. Look, anytime you start censoring things, there's going to be some human bias that gets interjected into it, and it's going to be an inexact science. I think Alex Jones is a complete idiot. He claims that Sandy Hook was fake, or alleged that it could be. He claims that Michelle Obama could be a man. I mean, I hate that kind of stuff. But Facebook also has a Flat Earth Society page and a Bigfoot Believers page. So there's nothing illegal about being.
You have a problem with Bigfoot?
No, I love Bigfoot.
I'm actually the president of that.
So, I follow it. I actually love the page.
You know
I think it's
agrees
great.
with you? Bill Maher. Bill Maher agrees with you on that very, very subject. He was commenting on this last night. Can we show that?
If you're a liberal, you're supposed to be for free speech. That's free speech for the speech you hate. That's what free speech means. We're losing the thread of the concepts that are important to this country. If you care about the real American or you don't, and if you do, it goes for every side. I don't like Alex Jones, but Alex Jones gets to speak. Everybody gets to speak.
Cathy Areu, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, most of us don't agree with Alex Jones, I think. But, yeah, it didn't even work. They said it was a temporary halt. It didn't even make sense, and it made him even more popular, probably has more followers. But it reminds me a lot when he said the liberal social media. It's just like Nixon with the liberal media. It's now it's not liberal media, it's liberal social media. And,
well, they didn't have social media when Nixon was
right, of course. So it's the new wave of calling these people that come out against your policies or with you. Just let's go against us versus them. So it's very reminiscent of like the Nixon days going against the liberal media, which it's not true. The media is half and half. I sat in that press room in the White House, and it was half and half.
Really?
It really was. It really was.
Look, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but the half and half thing I wonder about. But I do want to question, Kat, you on this. The president, in a series of tweets, talked about how this is distinguished from even the media that he doesn't flip over. You know, fake as CNN and MSNBC. And yet I do not ask that their sick behavior be removed. I get used to it and watch it with a grain of salt or don't watch at all. Can't we just leave it at that? You know, in other words, if you don't like what you're seeing, don't censor what you're hearing or seeing. Just don't accept it.
I think that would be a better solution. I also understand, however, that these are companies, individual private companies, that have the right to censor whatever they want to censor. If they wanted to censor me for no reason, then they'd have the right to do so. I don't have a constitutional right to tweet. I do think that it is a problem, though. I think that there is bias.
But what if we censored what you said here?
I would not. I mean, Fox News is also a private company. I also don't have a right to speak on Fox News.
But if Facebook denies the opportunity for points of views that, let's say, like yours, cannot get out there as a private company, well, of course, it's a publicly traded company, but
right.
Does it have the right to do that? The president questions whether it does. Many question whether you're on the right to let Bill Maher included, John Layfield included. No.
I agree that it's completely unfair. I agree that there is bias. I just don't know when he says he's not going to allow it, what exactly that means. That's a question that I would definitely have for the president.
Okay, well, he's accepting, I think, what is. He calls it fake news. One of the things, Jonas, that goes on with fake news is it fake if you don't like what you're hearing? Other presidents have problems with the press in the past. I was surprised to learn that one of the more popular presidents we had in the post-World War II era, John F. Kennedy, had problems, enormous problems with the press. So this goes way back. But I'm wondering where you draw the line.
The John F. Kennedy reference is interesting because some people said he only became president because of TV became the thing. Well, you can almost argue Trump became president because of social media. He's like the social media king. He's much better at it than Hillary Clinton was, no question about it. So it's a little strange that he's picking it out as something that needs to be dealt with when he uses it better than anybody. As far as... Okay, let me get back to Kat's point about their private companies. If they all merge someday or get any bigger than they already are, I can't even imagine that, but that is possible. There's going to be a point where it's like your power company can't cut you off. There's certain rules where they have to give you. There's nowhere else to speak once they control everything. It's not that far yet, and no one's keeping Alex Jones from having a website, and the government's not stopping him from speaking. So we haven't crossed over yet, but I think we're going in that direction.
But you don't find it troubling that those who control this, social media, would sooner cut off Alex Jones, and maybe for perfectly valid reasons, they find him obnoxious or whatever, but they wouldn't provide a tenth of zeal to go after left-leaning sites?
That seems to be the state, but that is because both parties are
Name me one left-leaning site that's been brought in.
I want to explain this way. Both parties, the social media companies and Alex Jones, are, at the end of the day, driven by profits. They are both making money from misinformation. Google, Facebook has made more money from crypto coin ads from Russia. Garbage. They don't care because they make money from fake bots, from users. And Alex Jones makes money. He's not just a guy speaking. He's not like Hitler who's just trying to change the world through his crazy thoughts. He's trying to sell nutritional supplements and T-shirts by spreading misinformation to people. What the Internet's done a bad job of is making it difficult for people who maybe should be smarter, but maybe shouldn't be so misinformed.
No, I think you're absolutely right. But, John Layfield, where I draw a distinction is who is judging that then? I mean, we have our own personal biases. We all do. Do we let that come into the picture here?
I don't see how you couldn't. Anytime you have a human judging something like this, you have to.
So all the humans I've seen judging this, John, on the social media spectrum have been targeting right-leaning sites, right-leaning sources.
Right. I agree with that completely, and I think they are, and I think that's the bias that they brought into it before they walked into that equation. I think there's a point there when you talk about where does it stop? It stops when they start promoting violence and they start promoting terrorism. But where does that point end as far as free speech becomes hate speech? And that's the slippery slope that they're talking about.
Well, how would you advise them, Cathy? How would you advise them on this subject to get away from the politics of it to, as he said, the next leap, which is violence?
Well, it seems the New York Times pointed out that they're confused. They actually don't even know. They said, Jack Dorsey was saying, it's about the values of Twitter. And they were saying, should he have said rules of Twitter? I mean, the rules, not values? What do you mean values? What values does Twitter have? What values does Facebook have?
Isn't this a site that started about people talking about what they had for breakfast?
Exactly.
So calm down about the constitutional.
Right. The CEOs don't even know what they're talking about. They're not even using the right words to describe how they're policing what's going on. They don't know how to police
And if you're getting your news from a site that has the most cat videos in the world, there's got to be some personal responsibility.
There's a problem with cats?
I have no problem with cats.
We all love cats.
I just think that there's got to be some personal responsibility from people that look at this stuff and don't do any due diligence.
All right, well, the lesson from the last election, and then people are worrying about this election, guide, is that more of that stuff's going to be foisted on us, whether it's from the left or right. All I'm saying, and I agree with pretty much everything and everyone has said here, just show the same aggressiveness in policing what's coming from questionable sources on the left as you do on the right. That's what I'm saying.
I agree, but I think that a lot of the people that work at these companies are liberals, so there is going to be, as you brought up, personal bias in terms of what does and does not get censored. That's completely unfair, and I think that the solution is for people who are conservative or libertarian to continue to speak out against it and put public pressure on them to not continue to do this.
Or don't watch it. Don't pay attention to it. You know, as the president said, now, I don't know whether he practices what he preaches because he knows.
He'll never stop tweeting.
All right, and he knows well enough what they're saying on MSNBC and CNN and some shows on this network. So maybe you can't control that. What do you think?
I think the internet companies need to do a better job of making it easier to see what's a lie or not. The whole ranking on popularity concept that drives Google is why it's sort of difficult for some people to determine that vaccines really aren't bad, or you know, you can't have a flat Earth and a Wookiee because he'd fall off the flat Earth. It's not that easy for somebody who's searching for those terms to determine that that's what's so crazy about it. Like, it seems balanced because there's a lot of traffic going to the crazy sites and they get uprated. And if you do some term searches, you actually might start to believe this garbage. And that's, I think, the internet companies need to put profit second and get back to this issue of that is not a left or right wing thing, the lies on the internet. If they were just going after the lies of Alex Jones, that would be one thing. It seems to be just a very quick thing where they all got together and said, he's a right wing crank. But if they focus on just the truths and the lies and make that easy for the consumer of the internet to use.
But we have our own definition of truth.
Well, that's right. It's almost like pornography. It's like who gets to say what it is. And
well, I know what pornography. All right.
From experience.
All right. Oh, look at the time. Look at the time. All right. By the way, are more security clearances on the chopping block? And what would be so wrong if they are? We were just getting into this on Fox and Friends in a brief hit with them that there are better than 4 million of these security clearance passes out there. 4 million. That's quite a bit. After this. You know, Peter Strzok may have been fired from his job at the FBI, but it doesn't mean he's going to leave the game show a loser. In fact, it's kind of like a game show with this GoFundMe page that's been raising a lot of money for Strzok's legal costs and all of that. Right now, he's closing on $500 million. That's what he wants. And I guess with this stuff, Cathy Areu was telling me you can just keep track of it and keep adding to it, right? And,
right.
And,
2 minutes ago,
in this segment, he'll top $500,000.
Yeah.
All right, but before you dial that switch, can you dial a switch? Anyway, Cathy Areu is here. We've got America Rising PAC Executive Director Alexandra Smith. We've also got Katherine Timpf. Cathy Areu, who's giving this money, first off? Do we know, obviously, people who feel that he's been treated unfairly, right?
Right. No, it's a free market.
Sure.
It's America.
Have you pledged any money to help out?
Not yet, but he's doing quite well. He's at $434,000. Someone just donated 2 minutes ago, and his goal is $500,000, $500,000.
It could happen in this segment.
Right now.
Kat, in this segment, it could happen.
This is such a joke. What a ridiculous bunch of nonsense. You don't start a GoFundMe page when you get fired. And I say that as someone who was fired from a Ruby Tuesday once.
Really?
Yeah, and you know what you do?
Did we have GoFundMe in those days?
I've seen so many ridiculous GoFundMe pages. I wrote a piece about it for National Review a few years back. I found one for booze money. I found one for some woman who said she just like absolutely needed to go to her 50-second fish show. I saw one from some woman who didn't feel like leaving New York after her vacation was over. I want to walk up to all these people and scream in their faces, people are dying. There are people who are actually like dying and they need money because they, you know, for potentially life-saving treatments. How about we donate to these people instead of donating to Peter Strzok? I don't know what happens.
Well, people are free to donate to whom they want, right?
Sure are, but
it's America. It's America, and people want to help him.
It is America, but if you want to help people, there's much worthier people out there, including just treating yourself.
Fair enough. All right, Alexandra, what do you think of all of this and where it's going? Because he's not the only fired or under pressure duress official who's getting money on you know, by such means.
You know, this is quite the consolation prize, considering his behavior at the FBI. And, you know, I think that what puzzles me about this is that I don't understand why Democrats and liberals who are opposed to the president want to die on the Peter Strzok hill. I mean, this is not a good guy. This is a guy that's not representative of the FBI. This is a guy who cheated on his wife, used government devices to do it, and now they're, you know, people are expressing their opposition to the president really in helping this guy.
Well, if you're drawing the line at people who cheat on their spouses, I mean, you might X out 90% of those in Washington were dragged into this. But do you get a sense, though, that this is rewarding bad behavior? I had a guest on with me yesterday, one of the shows I was doing, saying we don't want to send the wrong signal.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what it does is it's politicizing bad behavior. And so all of a sudden, because Peter Strzok was against President Trump, now he's some sort of hero for Democrats. I mean, Steve Cohen in the hearings where Peter Strzok was, you know, cocky and smirking, he said that he would give him a Purple Heart. I mean, this has just gotten so absurd. And I think that, you know, it's dangerous because we're looking at just objectively bad behavior and we're trying to view it through a partisan lens when it really doesn't deserve to be.
All right, but you could argue, and Kathy, I wonder what you were saying on the outset here. If, you know, in the days, if you guys are all too young to remember this, the former Labor Secretary of Ronald Reagan, Raymond Donovan, who was facing, you know, more than 24 counts of all sorts of criminalities, and he was exonerated on all. And yet he was begging in the end, where do I go to get my good name back? Now, there were no GoFundMe pages for him in those days.
Right.
And, you know, he staggered out of Washington, broke. So maybe this is a way to correct that in the future if you have like-minded folks raising money for you, but it is weird, isn't it?
Well, I read somewhere it said it does pay to apparently send your girlfriend anti-Trump messages. At the end of the day, it pays, and this is proof of it. And it is a free market. I mean, so if people want to support him, if they want to send, I think it's up to $390, and it's public. I think it's public information. You find out actually who gave the money.
Oh, so you go there and see everyone.
Yeah, I think so. If you get above a certain amount, you could see who actually is funding. I was
can't be
reading
anonymous,
up on it.
right?
I was reading up on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So apparently some are not anonymous.
Is there a limit to what you can donate?
Well, I read $390. I wasn't quite sure, but it was saying he was a hero and he's done so much.
No, the reason
for
I saw there, and I don't know whether that applies to former public figures or quasi-public, because you can give, in the times I've donated for GoFundMe causes, usually because of someone who's passed away or family who's passed away, but maybe they've changed the rules. I don't know.
I don't think they've changed many rules. They're just saying he's a hero. He's done so much for our nation, and if you want to support him and help him with these legal fees because he was wrongly fired,
well, that's,
then please
that's
help
what they
him.
were doing with Andy McCabe, the #2, right, at the FBI, and he was pushed out right before, you know, his pension would have kicked in, and they were trying to supplement the pension that he lost. What do you think?
Look, I just don't understand donating to people who are well off already and who have been fired. Getting fired is just not a charity cause. I understand that it's a free market and that if people are actually wanting to donate to Peter Strzok, that's fine. However, one time I spent $20 to have a single Slurpee delivered to my apartment because I didn't want to go outside, and I still think that was a better use of money than actually donating to this terrible,
What happened
terrible
to you
man.
at Ruby Tuesdays? Can you share this with us?
I don't want to because
Understood.
I might need to get another waitressing job in the future.
Okay, but this is going to last for a while. This technology is there for anyone and everyone, politicians and left and right, so maybe you shouldn't be bashing it just now.
I'm not not bashing it in a general context here. I mean, certainly, it has many good uses to it. I remember I donated to a GoFundMe page that was set up by the official page that was set up for the victims of the Las Vegas massacre last year. So that was a good example, good use of the GoFundMe page, because of course we had, hundreds of victims who have countless medical expenses as a result of that tragedy. And I've seen it come in the wake of different tragedies, both at a national scale and at a personal, scale. I think it's a great organizing tool. I don't think that in these particular contexts that these individuals are all that deserving of this money. I mean, people are free to give it.
People are free to give? It's a free country. Ladies, I want to thank you all very much. As they were speaking, I want to pass along some comments that are popping up on the Hill regarding the Turkish President Erdogan, who is none too pleased by the tit-for-tat and extremes back with the administration over these tariffs that we're planning on aluminum and steel products from that country. And of course, he responded by saying, I'm going to go after your electronics. Then he upped the ante to say, I'm going to go after your booze and cars and a host of other things, saying that it's creating an economic coup against his country amid heightened tensions with the U.S. that he says are not fair or not right and will not be tolerated. I think that's his way of saying, I am not budging, I am not bending, although he might be opening up a GoFundMe page. A little more to this. They say that money can save you a lot of troubles, but sometimes it can just add a lot of headaches and pain. And that's what's going on right now with the billionaire founder of Tesla in a world of hurt, and his stock in a world of even more hurt, and it's going from bad to worse, and he can't get out of his own way. Fox Business Network's Kristina Partsinevelos is on all the above. Hey, Kristina.
Hi, Neil. And you're right. You're seeing the stock just plummet over the last 2 weeks, more especially just on Friday. Why is that? Because there are now new reports saying that the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission, will be meeting with Musk, his board, early next week. These are just reports so far, but the stock reacted. The stock also reacted to a New York Times interview, which I'll get to in just a second. But what we're seeing just over the last little while, this is just the reaction on Friday once the New York Times interview and the SEC meeting came out. But why would the SEC be looking into Elon Musk and his company? There's two reasons. The first one is exploring whether Tesla misled employees and the public regarding the Model 3 battery, as well if he misled investors with his tweets, possibly with market manipulation, causing people to buy into the stock at an artificially high price, or trying to get those short sellers when we saw the stock just jump right after he said that he was taking the company private at $420 US and he had funding secured, which still has not been clarified. Musk, though, gave a 1-hour interview to the New York Times. He said he oscillated between laughter and tears, and it was the most excruciating year of his life. He was sleeping on the factory floor, working 120 hours during the week, and he was questioned, will you step down as CEO? Maybe you have a little bit too much on your plate. He responded by saying, if you have anyone who could do a better job, please let me know. They can have the job. Is there someone who could do the job better? They can have the reins right now. So a very confident tweet coming from Musk, who's facing lawsuits from shareholders. You have a whistleblower who's also saying that the batteries in certain Model 3s were defaulted or broken and yet still put into the car. So this is an ongoing situation with Elon Musk and the SEC. And yet he says he doesn't regret the tweet, which, by the way, has nothing to do with marijuana. There's no pot reference there. And he's not stepping down as CEO. So dealing with lots and lots of problems and possibly tons of fines. Neil?
Yeah, but when he's tempting fate, right, to say if you can find someone better, that's an engraved invitation a lot of times.
It's a very, very confident statement from a very confident man.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Great reporting as always, Kristina. Appreciate it. In the meantime, what to make of all of that, the tweets, the trouble, whether this company can survive with or without him. He's so associated with it, as Kristina pointed out. You got to wonder. John Layfield back with us, Katherine Timpf, Hitha, Herzog, and Jonas Max Ferris. Jonas, end with you, begin with you. Let's just get the next lead that they can find someone to replace him. Will the company be the same in that event?
There's no one to replace Elon Musk because nobody could drive the stock price as high as he has over the last few years. I'm not talking about the tweet specifically, just in general. The guy's a genius. He's a crazy genius, which we have to all watch out for.
That's what I say about Layfield.
I don't buy the no pot thing.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. If anybody did a 420 pot reference, it's the guy who put 11 on the volume with the Tesla from the Spinal Tap reference. So let's just get that out there. I'm not going to bang
Very good. Very good.
Anyway, he needs to come down from the Ambien or whatever. Anyway, look. this situation with the tweet, I don't know if he was kind of kidding around. I don't know if he was trying to get the convertible bonds to convert to get more money, because there is a serious cash burn issue here. It's a tough business to get profitable, and alternative energy is not easy economics. That's why Uber drivers don't drive hybrid cars usually. I hope he doesn't get in a lot of trouble, because a lot of people would get in trouble. He's not a crook, so I think the SEC will take that into consideration, obviously. But this smells of stock manipulation. Even though he doesn't personally trying to sell shares into it like some fraudster, he does need to keep the stock high to keep the cash flow going to this company. Maybe he didn't talk to a lawyer first, but maybe he had a deal with Saudis or Chinese or some of his billionaire friends.
It's all going to come out. We know it's all going to come out. I just wonder, is he so ubiquitous with the name and the company? Not in electric cars, because everyone seems to have them these days. But theirs are unique. Theirs are with all the panache and the style he's associated with.
Well, I'm a shareholder of Tesla. So, as a shareholder, yeah, I think I have to agree with you. The man is a genius. I mean, you, as an investor, you want to believe that he's going to be able to helm this company and spread his genius around to, everything that he's doing. But this isn't a new thing for him. On April 1st, he sent out a tweet saying that Tesla went bankrupt as an April Fool's joke.
Bankrupt.
So,
right.
Bankrupt. Okay.
Let's be clear.
Okay, yeah. Bankrupt. But,
but
it sent the stock down 7%.
Right?
Yeah, so if he's going to get in trouble for this, then, why can't he get in trouble for that?
But, the SEC has got to be careful, right? I mean, because they can't give him any special treatment. But, of course, the fear is it's a special company. It's an American, iconic name. A lot of jobs, a lot of lives in the balance here.
Yeah, and I think the SEC is going to take that into account. This looks like a very straight 10b-5 violation. This is a straight
That's
rule.
what I thought, 10b-5. What is 10b-5?
It's about fraud, and it's about the secured funding, what that he said he had. The standard for that is not verbal. I mean, and naivety of the law is no excuse for not crossing that threshold of having that.
What if the Saudis would have run and confirmed that, yeah, we told them that?
It's still going to be a violation because you have to have at least a term sheet. According to the SEC, you have to have at least a term sheet. Has to be initialed. There has to be something more than a verbal agreement. When he walked out of that meeting on July 31st and he said, "I thought I had a verbal agreement," that is not enough to meet the standard. In past historical references, what the SEC has done, the SEC looks to probably give him a slap on the wrist and a fine.
You know what's the irony here, Kat? Brought down by a tweet on this technology that makes just musing about whatever's going on in the day easy to do. It comes back to bite you.
Yeah, I feel like if you're that rich, though, you probably aren't worried too much about your tweets. You probably get real confident. I'm pretty confident, and I don't even have a lot of money. I am confident enough to tweet some pretty ridiculous stuff as it is. So I can't imagine being that rich and that powerful and not wanting to just every now and then, I have all these followers. Wouldn't it be funny if I said this? It's kind of a tempting thing.
But he doesn't strike me as like, a crook or like an Ivan Boesky type. It's no unspoken thought, no unspoken tweet.
He's doing what he wants to do. I mean, right. he has, do I dare say, privilege to be able to go ahead and go on Twitter and say whatever he wants and get a slap on the wrist if he says something off that sends the markets.
Do you think he knew ahead of time, to John's point, that this could come back to bite him?
I don't think so. I don't think, I doubt he consulted attorneys. I doubt that he, talked to anyone on his team. I think he just he even said in the New York Times piece that he wanted to be more transparent. But at what point does this transparency really cause issues? And some people really enjoy it and they want to see that from a CEO. I personally think that he should just zipit.com.
Though, Jonas, I was thinking, did he
Zip to it? Let's get these references.
Did he set himself up, though, because he went after analysts? Remember the conference call where he was ridiculing these analysts who were questioning?
The boneheads.
Right. And then it comes back to bite you.
Let me tell you something. They are boneheads, but I will say you can't. He actually just says that the hedge fund guys are smart to short him, but he hates them. You can't. Look, this guy, he's John DeLorean with an unlimited bank book. Like, he's had access to Wall Street. That's what let him run a company at a loss this long. That goes for a lot of startups, Uber and everything. There's a lot of venture capital. You can't take all that money to run a crazy, brilliant idea that's going to lose money for 10 years or more, and then get mad at them where the money came from. This money comes from boneheads. I mean, some of the tech guys aren't boneheads, but Wall Street, the Goldman, all these companies that are keeping this, the convertible bond buyers, they are why he can do these crazy things for so long. So you can't be that.
Well, but if he didn't have something to back it up, and Kat, you say what you will of this technology, I know it's ubiquitous now. Everyone seems to have an electric car. I guess Volvo was going to go all electric within a few years. But he gave it and gives it panache and style like Apple did with Steve Jobs. So you could make an argument that there's something to back that up. The question that I have is, much like people asked about Steve Jobs when he was forced out of the company, he returned triumphantly, of course. But can this company continue to do its thing without him?
I don't think it would be the same. I think that they're so connected, and I think that a lot of people, my age at least, certainly admire Elon Musk, and they think he's such a fascinating figure. And I think that without him, it wouldn't be the same thing. There wouldn't be that same fascination, and there wouldn't be that same innovation either.
Well, does the company survive potentially without him?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Apple survived without Steve Jobs. The question is,
but he came back.
He did come back, and then he passed away, and it's still, now it's at the $1 trillion valuation.
But had he not come back, I doubt that it would be.
To be honest, I think you're right. Most of the innovation came when he came back, so I don't know what would happen to
I don't think this company survives
Tesla.
without him. He took a rocket company from scratch. He launched more missiles last year than Europe and Russia combined. He really might be the most creative guy in the world. I think he made a horrible mistake. I think he needs to get off Twitter. He's going to get a fine fart, it looks like, and a slap on the wrist. But this company doesn't survive without Elon Musk.
The guy they brought in for Apple way back, Scully or Senatech, that guy almost ruined Apple.
Right.
The difference is Apple makes money and always has done products. They don't get into money-losing things for very long. Maybe the HomePod is the only exception to that. And Tesla loses a lot of money and needs to keep. They need him in there, because they don't have a product that makes money, so you need him to pump the company and keep it. I don't use the word pump because that's what he's in trouble for right now. But at the end of the day, it needs someone like him to keep the excitement level, people buying these cars.
He's the face man of the company.
But Jonas, they're great at batteries, and they're great at solar panels. The only thing he has not been able to do is produce cars, which is a really old-school technology. He's trying to bring the new world, and just hasn't worked yet. And he's developed one of the best cars of all time. He just can't mass produce it.
That's the trouble, to mass produce what is a niche but very appealing product. All right, we'll see what happens. In the meantime, seeing what happens when it comes to China. Forget about whether they try to economically target us and then screw us. Now signs that militarily they are going after us. We'll explain after this.